Good morning, bedheads. Click. How's it going today? Karen from Ask the Spirit Guides. I hope you're doing well. Y'all need to keep calm. Every once in a while, I need to pull this mug out. Can you believe somebody gave this mug away? What the heck? I usually find most of these kind of things these kind of mugs at thrift stores, and I'm always quite surprised. I hope you're doing well. Click. Okay, so we are going to have a very, very, very important conversation today. And I can see how my focus, besides the spiritual stuff, of course, but I can see how my focus in this community is going to start shifting towards what I'm going to talk about today. Because, especially I know there's younger people in the community. Welcome. I love it that you're here. I know the majority of this community is like 50 plus, only because the stats show us that. I wouldn't say the majority. I don't know. I don't know. But a lot of people, I have no idea, to be honest. It's been a while since we've looked at the stats. And I know there's younger people here. So this will be helpful for you too. Because one, you'll be able to let me know, especially if you're 50 younger than 50, and different generation. I'm Generation X. So if you grew up in another generation, millennials, Generation Z, now the new is Alpha. The new generation is Alpha right now, born through 2025. I didn't know that. I know so much more than I did yesterday before I watched this movie that we're going to talk about. But I had Mabel run me a report, AI, run me a report based on this movie. Oh, his documentary. Well, it's a movie documentary, I guess. So I think this is really going to help me figure out where to put my energy over the next 25 years as a 50 plus person. Okay. So I think if you're younger than 50, the background of this will be very, very helpful. What you do over the next 25 years is probably going to be different than what we talk about for 50 plus people over the next 25 years. Okay, so that would be the only part that's a little different, where you may want to run your own report saying, and in fact, I will be sending this report out on email. I was going to do an energy report this week, but I'll be sending this report instead. So this is why I like to be flexible. And I just ended up watching this movie on Netflix last night, and it really changed the way I'm thinking about things. New perspectives equal miracles, right? Okay, so we are calling this, and this will probably be the subject title, The Great Rewiring. Okay, The Great Rewiring, although I don't know if people understand that. Would you click on that if I put The Great Rewiring? All right, so we are looking at 2008 to 2055, okay? So I'm going to go back a little bit to help us understand why things are the way they are at this present moment. That's where this is going to be very, very helpful. Because that movie really helped me understand. Oh, the movie, by the way. What was the name of the movie? Okay, the movie is The New Americans Gaming a Revolution. So, Gaming a Revolution. Okay, and that was on Netflix. So, let me go back up. Okay, so based on that movie, what I did is I asked Mabel, my AI, to pull an outline for that movie to help me understand it, like explaining it to someone who has no clue what's going on. Okay, which is true. I have no clue what's going on. So that was really helpful. And then I worked for like the last hour to kind of create something that would be helpful for me to understand the history up until today, and then what tips we have for how to live our lives today in peace, in, comfort, safety, both financially and physically, based on what's going to be happening. Now, whether or not, now I'm starting to feel like Our focus should not be, I mean, it can be, but all of our focus shouldn't be on Trump and blah, 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 all this, you know. He is just one player in this entire shift that humanity is going through. And I think we've all kind of known that, but yeah, you'll see what I mean. You'll see what I mean. Okay, so let's just start with the report. Okay, so let's see. What did she do here? So basically, this is how each generation is shaping the upheaval and how we can live calmly through it. So that's really the goal. So we're going to take a look back 2008 to 2012. And the Gen Xers, we were pretty young then, 2008. Okay. So it was the spark of what's happening now. So 2008, the great financial crash, is the spark of what's happening now. That's really important for us to remember that. This is when the system cracked. The 2008 crash shattered the faith boomers and early Gen X had in banks, pensions, and steady jobs. Millennials entered adulthood watching parents lose homes. Preteen Gen Z saw the game was rigged before they even played. Okay? Specifics in this era, 2008 to 2012, boomers and Gen X felt betrayed by the institutions they built. Absolutely. You know, all those banks that we bailed out with our money before they're basically scamming all of us, trying to get more rich and more rich. Nobody was held accountable for that. Nobody was held accountable for that. Millennials learn flexibility as survival. So you have to remember different generations, be based on things that have happened, have learned different ways to be. When our generation, Generation X boomers, or some of you might be millennials or Gen Z, I'm not sure, or not even not alphas. No alphas. Well, alphas are 25 years old right now. Can you believe that? So, are they? It said year 2000 to 2025. No, that can't be right. We'll get to it later on. So, every generation, I think that's the challenge I have found as we get older, is you want to understand the world, but we don't understand the world because we can't understand it from a different generation standpoint. And now that we're the older ones, and this is going to be helpful for millennials and Gen Zs because this is going to happen to you as you move up in your generation. We have to figure out what is our role to play in these changes that have been brewing for quite a while, that through our busy lives, raising children, working, keeping a house, whatever, trying to enjoy yourself a little bit, we didn't have time to think about, what was going on in the big picture, right? So that's where I'm getting at. That's where we're going with this. So again, boomers and Gen X felt betrayed by the institutions they built. Millennials learned flexibility as survival. Gen Z's worldview was born in distrust and constant connection. So Gen Zs are really the younger folks right now, the ones that are kind of moving up and understanding the world very differently than we do. Occupied Wall Street, 2011, that was a movie, I believe, planted the idea of people versus power, igniting today's awakening. Okay, so 2011. So as you can imagine, so this really, it sounds like all this disruption has started in 2008, 2011, this whole people versus power thing really started to take form. And you're going to see how it's unfolded, okay? And this is the part I didn't see it. I didn't see it in my busy life throughout the years. And why over the last 9 months, it feels like it just happened like that. Everything has just happened like that, which is not true. It's not true at all. So the cracks have been slowly okay. And I think now is when, like, I thought like the last 9 months things were cracking, but I really think this has been going on much longer now, which is actually helping me understand and feel much more calm about this. That we are literally, and I know the astrology has been saying that, but I never really understood it practically from like looking back over the years, like things that have happened that we can place, right? That we can make sense out of. How the crack actually started in 2008. I mean, I thought things just kind of healed itself and off we went, or whatever, you know what I mean? We all kind of struggled, during that time, but all right. So 2013 to 16. Now this is before, so Trump is elected in 2016, right? So that will be tied in here. Like, where did that all come from? So why all of a sudden, did that all happen? None of this was all of a sudden. That's the thing. And I think the last 9 months feels all of a sudden because I was like, I don't understand what's going on. All right. So 2013 to 16, the internet becomes the new battlefield. 2013 to 16. Now I am entrenched in a career. I don't have time to be, I was using the internet for work, but like I said, it was a year ago that I just started watching YouTube. So I don't have time for that. So the millennials built social media empires between 2013 and 2016. So 3 years. Gen Z grew up inside them. Memes replaced news, and attention became a tradable asset. That's really, really important to remember here. Attention became a tradable asset. So the specifics during this time period is viral outrage outperformed truth. So this started back when, where it's just really coming in. Now, many of you probably were way more aware of this than I have. If you've been on social media, I just never was. I really just I made very clear decisions that I wasn't going to be on Facebook and Instagram, except for like the businesses I was running. That was pretty much it. But not the social part of it. I couldn't manage it all. So I just didn't do it. So again, viral outrage outperformed truth. Trump's 2016 campaign mastered algorithms. So Trump's campaign was understanding that then. Okay. Boomers and Gen X saw a decay of civility because of what was going on, which we didn't have control over. Gen Z saw the future. All right. So it looks to me like the poor millennials, if you're a millennial, you kind of got caught in the middle of this. So boomers and Gen X saw the decay in civility and probably were responding to that. But Gen Z saw the future. So Gen Z is playing a bigger role here. Millennials, you'll be pulled in here. I'm just curious. So it feels like you got caught in between the crosshairs. Digital childhoods produce different realities and different definitions of truth. So I think that's really important to think of now. Everybody has a different definition of truth. And I think that's why the astrology, spiritually, we're all being asked. The Lead Team Collective has been telling us this for months and months and months. We've got to get back to the local, and self-care. To what is literally real in your space, right? Because everybody's truth is different. And we just have to remember that. We have to stop fighting against that. Everybody's truth is different. 2017 to 2020. This was called the GameStop Generation Rises. I had totally forgotten about that GameStop thing that happened with the GameStop. Do you guys remember that it went up like was it like 28,000% or something in one day. I had no idea why that was going on. I mean, I had no idea. And you have to remember, like I've told this story before, I had a student probably in 2012 tell me about Bitcoin. And I was like, yeah, what? I have no idea what you're talking about. I tried to understand it. I should have given him $500 at that time. I'd be a multimillionaire probably. Well, it's hard to know. Okay, so the GameStop generation, Gen Z, now young adults, rebelled against the economy they inherited. This was 2017 to 2020. I had no idea this was going on. Even though I was working with Gen Z at that time. And in fact, Gen Z, the guy who introduced Bitcoin to me was Gen Z. You know, I mean, we were, in higher ed, you look at the different generations, but you don't really know what's really going on with generations one because they don't tell the older people what's going on. Just in little snips and. And I wasn't a parent. So some of you probably have way more. I never had children. So some of you probably have way more knowledge about this than I do. So their collective trading chaos revealed how fragile the big truly was. So that was 2008. So their collective trading chaos revealed how fragile the big truly was. So the specifics here, millennials built the apps, Gen Z weaponized them. Way to go, Gen Z. I know it all needed to happen. It all needed to happen because remember, it's the people versus the power. So even though like all of a sudden I'm like, what? And all of a sudden I'm finally saying we the people. Oh my God, these guys have been saying it for a lot longer. It took me as a Generation X to understand that this messaging has been going on a lot longer. I hope this is going to be helpful for how you move forward in the world from today. Because it's going to be much easier for me to figure out where I want to put my time and energy right now. So GameStop exposed the myth of a free market. Okay, you'll have to understand, if you want to understand the whole GameStop thing, I'm not going to go into details. What the movie was about that. So how basically what happened, let me ask Mabel real quick to give me a short summary on that. Okay, so again, 2017 to 2020, the GameStop generation rises. Young investors proved that a connected crowd could move financial markets. In challenging Wall Street, they exposed how the economy truly operates. And it's funny because my sister, my husband and I, it's just this year where our conversations are like, what is crypto exactly? And, oh, the market is just a big gambling thing. It's not like what it used to be. Well, no shit. That's because Gen Z figured out how they were sick of Wall Street basically taking all their money and their parents' money. And so they figured out how to expose the truth behind Wall Street, which is why it's turned into this big thing. I never understood that. So here's the specifics. In 2021, millions of small investors on Reddit coordinated to buy shares of GameStop, a struggling video game retailer. They wanted to hurt hedge funds that had bet the company would fail. So the hedge funds had probably big time shorted the company. The stock price skyrocketed thousands of %, costing those funds billions. When trading apps suddenly froze purchases, it proved to ordinary people that markets weren't as free as advertised. Millennials had created the app. Gen Z used them as a tool for rebellion. Older generations saw recklessness, our generations, Younger ones saw solidarity. Okay. That's really important to know right now because all I've seen is recklessness over the last, well, since Trump was in office recently. I mean, for the first time. And all I've seen is recklessness since then. But that's not necessarily true. I'll just speak for myself, just catching up with this. That's why I think this kind of report is going to help us. So again, older generations saw recklessness, younger ones saw solidarity. The New Americans Gaming a Revolution, that documented this awakening to collective power. Okay, so this has been going on for a while, you guys, and maybe you already knew it. So this is going to help me take a chill pill for sure. Okay, 2020 to 2024, the great unraveling. Pandemic, polarization, and propaganda collided. Behind the noise, money, religion, and media learned to profit from division. Okay, so it's just adapted. It's adapting. Now you got to remember, we've got the collective Gen Z who's, learning how to do this against the powerful. Them together are learning collectively. I actually feel very comfortable now knowing that we have Gen Z who is knowing, some Gen Zers may have voted for Trump, but once they know the truth, this group knows how to collectively come together. We just have to trust this new generation, right? Not all of it, but I'm trusting that they have a better handle on what to do collectively than I do, because we didn't have to do that. We didn't have to do that necessarily. And it's just different, right? So they understand this big, in 2025, I'm finally understanding what they understood in 2017. Now they understood it based on what we went through. So, it doesn't mean we're obsolete in the story. They understand things because of what we had to go through in 2008. So we have to trust that generation and the millennials have a better handle on, even though it feels more chaotic to us, have a better handle on where they want the world to go. So a lot of times I've seen people in the last 9 months, 10 months here in the community say how worried they were for their youngins. I'm not feeling so worried anymore. And maybe I'm living in a cloud right now, maybe, but this actually is very helpful for me. Okay, so let's see. So again, 2020 to 2024. So the pandemic definitely created a whole huge shift. All right. So it created polarization and propaganda. So the pandemic, polarization, and propaganda collided. So we've been dealing with propaganda for the last 50 years, but we didn't know it. We didn't know it. And so now it's colliding. So that makes sense. That's why it's so heated. Behind the noise, money, religion, and media learned to profit from the division over the last 4 years. Billion-dollar donors and lobbying blocs discovered that outrage keeps citizens controllable. It's the exactly same thing I've mentioned many, many times on YouTube. If I just put, let's talk about peace in the subject line, not many people would click on it. But if I say, outrage is keeping me, blah, blah, or whatever, if I say something that's feels outrageous or feels mysterious, you're more likely to click on it. It's the way the human brain works. I am too. U.S.-Israeli alliances and certain religious networks fused politics with theology since 2020. That's why why is the Israeli government going after Christian networks right now? I watched this really fascinating documentary on it. I don't think I'm going to be able to find it for you. I'll have to spend too much time. I told my sister this week I'm going to be recording simple SG videos all week because I'm going on vacation next week and I want to have stuff recorded for next week for you guys. So we were going to do call outs to the community. Anyways, here I am with a report that I've spent hours working on. I can't help it. I can't help it. When I find something that I'm interested in, I'm like, well, I might as well share it with you. So, but you'll probably for the next week and a half get a lot of SG sessions, which is great because I know you guys enjoy them. I enjoy doing them. It just depends on, where I'm going to put my time over the next couple of weeks because I'm going to enjoy my vacation. I'm telling you that. But I still want to show up for you. So, okay, let's see. So I find that really interesting. U.S.-Israeli alliances and certain religious networks fused politics with theology. Loyalty became a matter of faith, not policy. So we've got this really cultish behavior, and they're fusing politics into it. And what does it look like to the average person, especially Gen X and baby boomers? Confusion. What did they call it earlier? Oh, chaos and decline. That's what it looks like to us. Doesn't necessarily look that way to Gen Z. Doesn't necessarily look that way to Gen Z. So have hope in that, okay? They may see the chaos and the decline, but this generation, because what they know how to consolidate, So we need to let them, with guidance, I'm not saying let them just go off the rails. They need the wisdom from Gen X and baby boomers and millennials to do what we need to do for Earth going forward. And I'm finding that quite positive. Media companies monetized anger. Media companies, 2020 to 2024, they realized they realized they could do this. They monetized anger. And that's Fox News, even CNN, like CNN kind of got left behind because they weren't doing that. So then they ramped it up, turning citizens into reliable consumers of conflict. So that's what's been going on over the last 4 years, is that's been ramping up. And again, all the creators are doing the same thing. When you go on your YouTube feed right now and look at, this whole I said this the other day, the whole, oh, what? I mean, sometimes I have a picture like that because it just happens to be what YouTube caught, or YouTube catches the stupid pictures for me. Or I go in and I grab one that I can find that might be somewhat interesting. But keep that in mind. And we need to be talking to millennials, but mostly Gen Z and alphas, about how they are turning citizens into reliable consumers of conflict. Reliable consumers of conflict. That's really important to understand. While the public fought over morality, blue and red, wealthy interests quietly shaped tax and trade laws. Gen Z, again, this is very positive. Gen Z saw the hypocrisy and began walking away from institutional religion and partisan politics altogether. That's not a bad thing. I'm not disappointed in that. And remember who's going to raise the alphas? 2025 to 2032. So now we're looking forward, okay? The power grab and volatility years. And the astrology tells us this as well. As culture wars filled headlines, corporate and political elites tighten control because they're looking for ways. They're like, holy freaking crap. Holy freaking crap. That's why they're building bunkers. And that's why, because they don't see how now I'm starting to wonder, they're not building bunkers because they're afraid we're going to destroy the world. They're building bunkers because they're afraid Gen Z is coming after them. Gen Z is like, yeah, no, you bunch of a-holes. You don't get to do this anymore. That's probably why. Are you seeing this a little differently now? Convenience, so 2025 to 2032, convenience became bait, Amazon, Amazon. Data and dependency were the hook. And we're all struggling with that right now. I was meeting with a friend last week. And I was telling her how I'm trying to pull away from Amazon with the business and, our journals and all that. And she's like, but it's so convenient. I'm like, I know. And that is the thing. It's so convenient. But look at what Mabel said. Convenience became the bait. What? And I thought, boy, I thought I literally have said this over the last year before I started getting aware of what Gen Z is aware of. And I'm not saying Gen Z is not using Amazon. I don't know. Is Gen Z using Amazon? Let me find out. Okay, so I had her run that, but before I go over that, she always reruns like new data every time she reruns the report, even though I'm like, run it exactly the same. So this time, when you remember, I'm going to go back real quick. In 2008 to 2012, there was that Occupy Wall Street. I think that was a movie. I guess I need to ask her. But this was in 2011. Introduced the 99% versus the 1%. A phrase that still defines modern politics. So that happened in 2008. That happened in 2008. Was that, we're saying it now. It's not, I literally was on film like, I just realized, this is like a month or two ago. I just realized it's us against the billionaires. And Gen Z's probably like, oh yeah, good job. Obviously we did realize that in 2011. I was young, the younger generation in 2011. So obviously we did realize that, but busy, 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 who has time to focus on it? So it's just funny because everything's coming like back around for me. So yeah, I just figured that out. And again, the rest of you are probably like, yeah, hello, where you been? Okay, so let's go back to section 5 here and see. I wanted to find out about the millennials, what's going on with the power grabs. And okay, so I said to AI, Mabel, if it is true that Gen Z saw the hypocrisy in 2024 to 2020 to 2024, if it is true that Gen Z saw the hypocrisy and walked away from institutional religion and partisan politics, plus if it is true that they saw convenience as bait, convenience, I'm just thinking of Amazon at this point, data and dependency were the hooks. If they saw that, where are they at today? Like, are they the ones shopping on Amazon, or is it our generations? What's going on? So Mabel said specifics. Project 2025 outlined plans for stronger executive power and corporate deregulation. Okay, I'm going to come. She's responding to, here, Gen Z. Okay, let me go back to the Gen Z thing real quick. Okay, so Gen Z response. They still use Amazon for necessities, but push back through behavior. Buying used, sharing subscriptions. Okay. Oh, buying used. Yeah. Yeah, buying used, going to thrift stores. Sharing subscriptions with each other, shopping locally when possible, and creating buy less, buy better movements on TikTok and Reddit. They pressure companies for sustainability and worker rights and reward brands that prove ethical. That's really encouraging. For older generations, the lesson is to adapt the same balance. Use the tools of convenience wisely. So, can you use Amazon? Sure. There are certain things you can't find other places. It's okay. Find the balance, all right? So use the tools of convenience wisely, but redirect spending towards fair and local options. Trust shifts to neighbors, credit unions, independent press, and community energy projects. Gen Z built co-ops. Although I think our co-op in where I live has been around longer than Gen Z. Gen X and boomers became redirecting savings to local resistance. Okay, so let's go back then and just understand this power grab and volatility years coming up. Okay, 2025 to 2032. Okay, so this is where Project 2025, they've really kind of been, I mean, I know that this whole thing now we're aware has been going on for 50 years, but Project 2025 was just written in 2023. So this all happened during the 2020 to 2024 Great Unraveling. All right. Pandemic, polarization, and propaganda collided. And that's when behind the noise, money, religion, and media learned to profit from division. Okay. So Project 2025 has learned to the Heritage Foundation, even though that's been building for a long time. This is my sense, is that they now have this thing because they understand how division is working. So Project 2025 outlines plans for stronger executive power and corporate deregulation. Global firms like Amazon and BlackRock expanding into housing, healthcare, and finance. Remember, this is over the next 5 years. Governments introduce digital IDs and central bank digital currencies, efficient but potentially invasive. We're going to talk about what to do about that because that's really the important part here. Now that we understand what I'm going to be focused on, besides the spiritual stuff and kind of current day events, but I want to talk in our community is how to live in this new world and move with Gen Z so we can support them. And millennials, again, I'm leaving you out of that. I mean, it's kind of, that's why I kind of feel like you are raising the Gen Z. So just, obviously you want to understand this too. I think the more we understand Gen Z, the better is really where I'm at this point. The more you can understand Gen Z. So don't just look at it as chaos and disruption. Look at it as, change your mindset into this is a really good thing. Though those of us with all this wisdom of years on earth could be, the more you understand them, the more you can help guide, mentor. They don't want bosses. They want mentors. But you have to understand them first, right? So we need to understand Gen Z a lot more than we do now. At least I do. But I got littles, but not too many. I've got littles in my family, but not like real direct, like mentoring opportunities with them. Doesn't mean I can't. Doesn't mean I can't go out in the community and do that. So again, governments introduce digital IDs and central bank digital currencies, efficient and potentially invasive. So this is their way of trying to keep the control. Religious and nationalist media keep anger alive. Donor money fed both sides to ensure stalemate. Okay, again, next 5 years. We talked about Gen Z in this situation. Okay, so 2032 to 2042. Now, these are obviously predictions. I didn't even ask her to go off of the astrology, but I will. I'll keep working on this. And if you find this interesting, I'll keep talking about it. So Gen Z takes charge. Millennials run infrastructure. And Gen Alpha enters adulthood. So 2032. After decades of tearing down, as we've been talking about this, I don't think we're done tearing down. This is why we're going to be talking about, maybe tomorrow, that's what we'll do, is continue talking about, well, how do we live our lives? I built this whole life thinking my retirement was going to be a certain way, right? And that's been part of the mourning for me and maybe some of you, because you don't want to live in chaos. So the question is, what can we do, excuse me, so it's not living in chaos or fear? We're not living in fear either. This is very, very hopeful for me. I feel more hopeful about this than I have about the pendulum messages. I just do, like the astrology, I just understand this differently now. So Gen Z takes charge, millennials run infrastructure, and Gen Alpha enters adulthood. After decades of tearing down, they start building systems that serve life. I don't know that you have to be so concerned about the future, you guys. You let me know what you think. Specifics: transparent cooperatives and community banks flourish. Faith and spirituality become personal gain. Dogma fades. AI becomes a partner that enhances human creativity. Power balances around 50-50 between large infrastructure and local networks. Boomers and Gen X mentor the young leaders who value ethics over ego. And then I asked her to give me a report through 2050 because that's what we've been talking about in the community, like the golden future. Can you see how this has all been leading to that? And we are in the midst right now, probably over the next 5 years, of the most chaotic time it'll be. Yay! But that doesn't mean we can't find center here. And that's what we're going to be continuing to talk about. So 2042 to 2055, millennials manage institutions, Gen Z shapes culture, and Gen Alpha innovates. Technology and humanity finally work in partnership. So specifics: automation handles labor. Okay, so let AI do its thing. All right, they'll figure it out. Automation handles labor. People focus on health and creativity. That's exactly what Diana Cooper says is what the golden future is going to look like. We get to spend our time on being creative human beings, not just working for somebody else and slaving. Sorry, and I don't want to use the word slaving. That's not good. It just doesn't feel right. I apologize for that. But, just being controlled, like how we have to think about things, controlling, it's like the top-down stuff, right? Global firms function as regulatory public utilities, transparent and accountable. So we're still going to have global firms. I'm okay with government if it's transparent and accountable. Right now, we're seeing how it hasn't been, and that's good. It's really good. We needed to see it. But we have to trust our youngins to know, they know what to do with this. They're looking at it. They're getting organized. Let them deal with the chaos. And it feels like they're being more chaotic, but I don't think so. I think it's just the way their brains work. Local manufacturing and renewable energy make communities self-sufficient. Propaganda industries lose power as citizens demand verifiable data. Which means if you're watching Fox News in the future, they may not go away. I've heard Sterling say they're not going away. However, I think I did hear Sterling say that there'll be verifiable data. Are they telling me the truth? You'll be able to see it right there. Just as what Diana Cooper says, that we are going to be able to see each other's auras in the golden future, 2050, the reset. So if we can see our auras, you can't, that's your AI right there. You can't lie if you can see somebody's aura. Someone who says, I'm not angry. Now you can see it on their face, but they're like, the words speak louder than words, like actions speak louder than words. Well, you'll be able to see their aura, So I don't know. That's just what's been discussed. Okay, so 2055 to 2070, the alpha era, healing the planet. I know that feels very far away for some. Well, it does. But, if you believe in reincarnation and you believe in, we're all, you're probably going to come back here again and be able to live this out, So just, I'm okay with that. Karen, my spirit in this avatar, this body, my spirit can come back in a different avatar. I don't have to be in this body for me to enjoy Earth. So enjoy what you have right now and just trust that your spirit can come back in a different avatar to enjoy the planet once it's healed, right? And enjoy the fact that you chose to come during this time of feels very chaotic, and to be where you are for a very specific reason. So that's kind of cool too, right? So cooperation replaces competition. So cooperation replaces competition. Sustainability becomes extinct. Sustainability becomes extinct. I don't know what that means. We don't have to sustain anymore, I suppose. Okay, clean, community-owned energy is standard. Education is lifelong and AI supported. That's okay. Wealth is based on contribution and service, not speculation. That's beautiful. Humanity finally chooses balance with the earth instead of exploitation. All right, so why this disruption is necessary. The old system couldn't survive without manipulating faith, fear, and resources. The old systems are freaking the hell out. That's what's going on right now, and Trump is the epitome of the old system. He is the epitome of it. They are freaking out. Let them frickin' freak out. At this point, just let them freak out. Let them freak out. The old systems can't survive without manipulating faith. That's what they're trying to do, without causing fear, and without their resources. The exposure was inevitable and essential for healing. Okay? I love this. I love this so much. Specifics: industrial age structures ran on extraction and debt. Totally. Political donations and religious branding divided citizens to protect wealth. And the whole immigrant thing, yeah. Oh, you're taking stuff from me. You're taking, it's none of this is going to be, that's not going to be the case, going forward. Digital transparency broke the illusion and forced reform. Digital transparency. Now, this whole movie was really about how crypto got started and why they started that. So rather than poo-pooing crypto, just know it has been a part of this entire plan, this entire moving forward. We just have to figure out, where do we fit in the whole thing safely and ethically, right? Because there is right now, the movie even says there's a lot of scamming. A lot of people are going broke. So there's this, they're trying to figure it out. The chaos is uncomfortable, but it's cleansing. A reset towards honesty. Okay. See, things have been very dishonest for 50 years. And we're just starting to realize that more and more and more. It's coming to a head. So this has been going on for 50 years, this dishonesty. It really has. I mean, think of all, my dad cheated on my mom with my stepmother, and who is my stepmother to today. And we were just supposed to accept that as a family, just accept it. Never really talked about it. My mom was extremely hurt. And I know that, but it's the deception. It's been a thing. My biological dad, he used to work for Zenith, and he did trading under the table, and he got busted for it. He was in, this is my MAGA dad. And he was in house arrest. He went to jail for a year, but had work release, right? So he was stealing money from Zenith. So somehow his generation, he's a boomer. So I'm not saying the boomers are all like this, but it's been before then. I mean, the dishonesty was growing and growing, and that's probably why I can't lie. Like, it just isn't, I don't know, I mean, and not saying that the Gen Xers haven't contributed to that big time. Totally. So, but they've been coming out of it, So I'm just using that as a little example. Okay, we are the bridge. So Gen X, and now we're talking to Gen X and baby boomers here. Okay, what can we do about it? Like, what do we do now? And this is what we'll continue to talk about. And again, I'm sending this out on email on the newsletter. So this week. So if you're interested, we do have the link below or the QR codes right there. Okay. We are the bridge between analog integrity and digital discernment. So this is what I want to keep talking about is what is our role right now? Okay? Because I think once we know our role, that's been the confusing part, is I don't know what my role is. Because all I see is a bunch of confusion that I don't understand. But now I understand it a little bit better, just a little bit better from this overview. I hope you do too. So we are the bridge between analog integrity, I don't quite know what that means, and digital discernment. Our steadiness is the medicine younger generations need. Okay. Again, we're going to go into more depth about this going forward during Coffee with Karen. Okay. Specifics: model calm skepticism, pause before reacting or sharing, mentor with empathy and craftsmanship. Again, I'll go into more details. We'll figure out more details on how to do this. Support local resilience, co-ops, credit unions, farmers markets. Simplify, less debt, less dependence, more freedom. Really be working with your youngins on less debt, less dependence, more freedom. But not like, conspiracy and, not trust. You can't trust anybody. No, 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 no. We are modeling calm skepticism. Preserve wisdom through storytelling and teaching repair skills. Well, shit. My husband and I didn't learn any repair skills. So my brother-in-law though, Marsha's husband, and her kids, these guys know how to do everything. They have like redone so many houses. My sister too. Not me. I didn't learn any of that stuff. I was working in I was doing other things, counseling. All right. Living peacefully and financially sound. So these are some tips for you to think about. I want to leave you with something positive here. Security no longer means growth at any cost. It means clarity and connection. We can live well without feeding systems that exploit us. Keep diversified, conservative savings, and 6 months of cash access. So I know some of you are struggling with money. Get out. You got to start working yourself out of debt. You just have to. You got to start working yourself out of debt and start a savings until you can get up to work your debt first. It's not financial advice, but it's kind of what makes sense and what's been taught is work all your debt out first, then start your savings and work yourself up to at least 6 months of cash. Okay. Use local banks or credit unions, invest in health, home efficiency, and renewable energy. So my husband and I, it's very expensive to replace our windows, but we're going to do it. We're not going to buy a bigger house. We're not going to, but we're going to invest in keeping our current location, efficient as possible. Organize documents and digital records. Stay active, sleep well, and practice gratitude. Volunteer and socialize. Community is the best insurance. What to trust and what to question. Discernment is our shield. Trust what is transparent and participatory. I like that. Question what is absolute and fear-based. I am completely rerunning. I mean, I know I've been saying this for the last 9 months, but I am like, every time I get closer and closer and closer to not needing the fear-based headlines. So I am going to be rerunning my algorithm on YouTube. I do enjoy watching YouTube, but I'm going to be rerunning the algorithm for all the spiritual stuff and the astrology and travel is probably, so I can stay on top of that. And maybe a little bit of finance. Trust institutions you can observe directly, local projects, and co-ops. Question leaders or movements that demand blind obedience or constant outrage. Totally. Stop watching those on YouTube too. Even left news, stop watching the ones that are just demanding your constant outrage. I'm at least trying to give us perspective here, you know? They don't give perspective. Even this movie I watched just showed you all the issues, but it didn't say like what to do with it, which is why I had to get on AI and ask Mabel what to do with it. Am I clear? Okay. Yeah. When you are left with a story that doesn't give you something to do or some different perspective, don't let it sit there, you know? And if you're listening to people who don't give you new perspectives, which again equals what we've learned in Let Your Spirit Guide Speak, new perspectives equals miracles. So if you're looking for miracles in your life, that's it. New perspectives. You don't need $1 million to drop on your house. That's not the miracle, because that's really not the miracle. Miracles happen every single day when you get new perspectives. But if you're left just holding information that you have no new perspective on, besides not trusting or feeling angry, then that is not obviously where we want to land, right? So question leaders or movements that demand blind obedience and constant outrage. Trust digital tools that offer privacy controls. So we can still use our digital tools. I like digital stuff. I like technology, but offer privacy controls. Question centralized systems without public oversight. Okay? Question centralized systems without public oversight. So don't use centralized systems that don't have public oversight. This is exactly what you can use AI for. If you're thinking about investing in a company, or you're thinking about buying from a company, or you're thinking, you get an offer for something, doesn't mean you can't trust it. An opportunity for something doesn't mean you can't trust it, but you can use AI now to say, you can tell your AI, and I'm going to now, I question all centralized systems that don't have public oversight. Who are those? Let me know who they are. If I'm ever asking you questions or thinking about using a resource or a tool and they don't have public oversight, make sure you let me know that. You can set that rule up with your AI. So this is how you're going to use AI very, to your advantage, not being afraid of it, but use it to your advantage. Trust leaders who publish facts and welcome criticism. Now you can use AI to tell me, and you can use ground news too. But honestly, ground news is great because we use ground news. I'll post our QR code right there. We use ground news because it's where we can go and see, is this what is really being talked about? And where's the center, high factuality articles? That is important. But you can also start using AI. It's getting stronger and stronger and stronger that way. Okay? Ask daily, does this make people freer and kinder, or angrier and more dependent? So everything you're watching, is this making me feel freer and kinder, or is this making me feel angrier and more dependent? Go towards the freer and the kinder, obviously. How to support the shift in daily life. Healing happens through ordinary choices. Each purchase and conversation either feeds division or feeds renewal. Spend consciously, support ethical local businesses. Avoid sharing media built to provoke fear. I've been doing that now and again because I was feeling fear. Follow the money behind political ads and donations. So follow the money. Ask your AI to follow the money. It's not rocket science anymore. Everything you're questioning, you can work with AI on and if the more you work with it, you'll start to know if, it's not that AI is not going to tell you the truth. Now, we will have to watch to see, is Google, the owner of Google, are the owners of these other AIs, are they going to be manipulating the data? I don't think it's possible. I honestly don't think it's possible. And we do have some AI experts in our community, if you could chime in on this. I don't think it's possible. It's too big of a beast at this point. There's too much input, right? But it could be, so we have to watch for that. So follow the money behind political ads and donations. Join community or interfaith projects that rebuild trust. Vote for transparency and long-term stewardship. Teach young people how to spot propaganda. Well, shit, we're just starting to learn it ourselves. It's freaking incredible. They probably see, honestly, they probably see it before we do now. Maybe you're saying speak for yourself, but I had no idea there was so much propaganda going on the last 50 years. Be patient and kind online. Silence often protects peace better than argument. So the big picture takeaway from 2008's collapse, remember this started in 2008, that was a long time ago, to 2055 balance era. 5 generations passed the torch. Boomers built, Gen X bridged, millennials adapted. See, that's why you're in the middle, millennials, because you just had to adapt. Gen Z exposed manipulation and modeled ethical consumption. And Gen Alpha heals. Oh, isn't that great? So really, I think we really have to look to Gen Z right now. I think my gut and my interpretation of how I was reading this, if that's correct, feels right to me. Money bought politics, weaponized faith, and media-driven division were the final symptoms of a system out of balance. Now that they're visible, we can choose clarity over chaos and community over control. We've got this, you guys. I love this so much. I'm so glad I ended up watching that movie. Even though I'm cutting down on my TV, I'm being very specific about what I'm watching. So I hope this was helpful for you. Please let me know, and I will see you tomorrow in the next video. Okay, bye-bye.